My name is Michael Smith. I'm an archaeologist at Arizona State University, and I'll be talking about heritage sites as sources of scientific data on past urban adaptations. This relates to cross-cutting theme 2, capacity to learn from the past. My co-authors are Jose Lobo and Scott Ortman. Sustainability implies long-term continuity. A sustainable system is one which survives, according to Costanza and Patton. Research on climate change adaptation typically lacks sufficient time depth to assess long-term sustainability. In fact, how do we know what will be sustainable and what won't, and which adaptations will survive and which won't? You need a crystal ball. We don't have the historical time depth to really answer these questions. But heritage sites, ancient cities, provide the necessary time depth to address these issues. Some early cities lasted an awfully long time, hundreds, even thousands of years. This paper borrows from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Other cities were more ephemeral and did not last so long. Well, what's the difference between those two? In fact, what's the justification for using past cities to generate information to use in assessing contemporary sustainability issues? Well, one is settlement scaling research shows that ancient urban systems and contemporary urban systems had very similar quantitative features. A second reason is that a number of economic models work equally well in modern cities and ancient cities, revealing the same patterns of, for example, density gradients. Third reason is features like urban neighborhoods are universals in cities and show a basic continuity, despite the many real differences among cities in the past and the present. So the first thing to do is expand the concept of urban adaptation. In the biology and anthropology, adaptation is a broader concept. It's reactive, and it can only be judged in retrospect. The next step is to devise a rigorous argument. For example, if a past city persisted for a long duration, it must have solved a series of problems in urban adaptation. It must have survived a series of shocks and stresses, and it must have had the adaptive capacity to survive for a long period of time. So one research plan might be to identify cities in the past with high and low persistence values and compare cities to identify which features best distinguish between those two categories and relate them to urban and social features of cities today. Third method is to choose a method to analyze past urban sustainability. This is quite common with stories and heuristic analogs, which is a sort of less scientific approach. Case study anecdotes are more rigorous, and the most rigorous scientific approach is to measure variables and carry out cross-case analysis with good sample sizes. Stories and heuristic analogs sound good. The Maya collapse, there must be some lesson in there for us. We should try to avoid that, such as the sustainability or collapse volume. The problem with this kind of approach is they're too complicated. They're too broadly conceived. We can't really nail down specific features that are helpful today. Case study anecdotes bring in more cases and have a limited scope, and a number of sustainability textbooks involve this kind of approach. It's increasingly common in the journals, rigorous understanding of societal responses to climate change, where a bunch of case studies are assembled, but then they're not analyzed. The more complex method of measuring variables is so far rarely applied to the climate change literature in the past. Now, archaeologists have a variety of new methods for quantitative analysis, which we're bringing to bear on the past. And this approach can be applied to early urban adaptations and sustainability. For example, we can get quantitative data on how long settlements lasted. And here's a survey, archaeological survey I carried out in the Yautepec Valley of central Mexico, where we identified several hundred archaeological settlements. And our first finding is the median settlement persistence was 370 years. Those sites lasted an awfully long time. Our second finding is that large-scale institutions like empires or trading systems played a major role in determining the persistence of settlements. The major drivers of persistence, we hypothesize, are demography, institutions, and geography. But these need to be tested against the archaeological and historical records. So in sum, ancient cities, heritage sites, have time depth to address adaptation, but they need to be preserved and they need to be analyzed scientifically to generate relevant data. Thank you very much.